You're listening to a download from the outdoorstation.co.uk. Number 368.
Hello and welcome back to the Outdoor Station with me, your host, Bob Cartwright. So here we are at podcast number 368. 368. Who would have thought that possible when I started all keen and excited back in September 2005 with the very first Backpacking Light podcast? Shall we turn back the clock and have a listen? Hello and welcome to another podcast from backpackinglight.co.uk. I'm Bob Cartwright, your host, and all our podcasts are focused on the subject of the great outdoors and, where possible, easing the strain and taking a lighter load. Our motto is minimum weight, maximum fun, so where we can we try to see what weight-saving and practical tips we can glean in our podcasts. We have particular interest in supporting those in the UK manufacturing industry, as I'm a firm believer that the UK-made or designed products show greater innovation and development than those from other parts of the world. Don't I sound so young and enthusiastic? And now I'm all big and grown up. It seems so long ago, hearing that again. And, well, I suppose it is. It's 9 years ago now, I guess. And the reason I'm reflecting on the first podcast is there have been various articles and programmes and shows just recently. You may have heard one on Radio 4 last week saying and announcing that podcasting is officially 10 years old and it is finally grown up and been accepted as a serious, respectable part of people's media entertainment. Now, a lot of that has been due apparently to the development in the last few years of smartphones, the various pads and the like, and a whole new audience and an older age range, in fact, getting into the technology and using it to explore and find niche content which obviously appeals and works for them. Now, the figures actually speak for themselves, and just before recording this, I thought I'd do a little bit of backtracking for the last couple of months on the Outdoor Station and see exactly what number of downloads we've had. Well, we've been averaging very, very steadily on a daily basis 2,500 downloads a day. Now, of course, across a 7-day week, that equates to 17,500 downloads. If we put that into perspective, that is almost double the TGO magazine readership for a month. Over a 30-day period, this equates to 75,000 downloads, and that blows out the water Trail magazine and Country Walking magazine put together. So it gives you a bit of an idea, the penetration that our little niche collective of information and stories is actually reaching out to a number of people across the whole world, of course. Of course, this has meant that program and content makers like myself are more than ever before bypassing the traditional broadcast limitations and finding an extensive audience. Well, actually, it's probably the other way around. The audience are finding us. According to recent figures issued by iTunes, there's 250,000 individual podcasters on there releasing information, and that covers everybody from the well-funded BBC right down to the independents like myself. So it's no wonder the media experts and all these recent articles are saying that traditional radio and TV is really actually getting onto its knees. I've witnessed it, I suppose myself, really, with an elderly relative who has enthusiastically been exploring the wonders of her iPad and realising that her choice of radio content is actually available at her fingers and realising how simple the whole process is. And now, comparing this to her previous experience, she used to struggle to get a cassette tape into the machine the right way around and managed to record the Archer's Omnibus edition. So, of course, this podcasting appears to be very, very simple, very easy to do, and you just hit play and you can listen to whatever you want to listen to whenever you want. And, of course, this is one of the reasons the audience is growing massively across this particular genre. Okay, so where am I going with all this background information? Well, it just made me think what a massive audience that I have and how I need to thank you for taking the time to download or listen to these podcasts. I love audio, and I've said it many a times over the year. Video is fun, and it certainly can give a lot more information from a practical point of view, but it is considerably more expensive and a lot more work to put these programs together, as much as I love it. But I do love audio, and it's reminding me I do need to get out more and interview normal people doing interesting things, self-powered, interesting things. That's what these podcasts are all about. The whole reason for doing it, of course, is learning about other people's lives and what they're doing and sharing it with the world and sharing a little bit of love and fun and entertainment along the way. Now, talking of interesting people, how about this? Do you remember 2 years ago in February 2012, I interviewed Warren and Esther Sanders on podcast number 339 and 340, who were a year into a 4-year around-the-world cycle ride. They are currently in the United States and about to set off on the last leg of their journey. Somehow we missed catching up over the last couple of years for different reasons, but the opportunity came to pick up where we left off last week and proceed further from the previous 2 interviews. Now, this podcast takes a different route to the previous ones, number 339 and 340. Do take time to check those out if you can first. But what I wanted to do was look at more deeply how their emotions and their relationship to the road and travel and cycling had changed over the last 3+ years. The Skype connection sadly drops out a couple of times at the beginning of the interview, but stick with it. It does settle down towards the end. As I say, this is a 2-part series or 4-part series, depends how you want to look at it, and hopefully will lead into a 5-part series when they eventually return and we get the final part of the story and how they're feeling once they walk through the front door once again. After 3 years, what's the first question going to be? Where are you now? And how did you get there?
All right. At the moment, we're in the USA, just waiting for the weather to finally settle into spring. We're on the East Coast, very near Baltimore, and we're going to be just cycling down the coast, going out to the drive here, cycle down the coast to Yorktown, and then pretty much cycle straight across in the direction of Colorado, and then kink up to avoid a bit of the Rockies and across to the coast to do finish up on a coast-to-coast USA trip. As where we've been, you spoke to us when we were in Germany. We'd just come from Newcastle, having flown into the UK. In Newcastle, we were catching the ferry across into Amsterdam, and we'd cycled from Amsterdam to Hamburg. So we were just kind of relaxing in Germany.
And so since Germany then, obviously, without it being too long a list, because looking at your blog page, which is the Sports Wool Diaries, if people want to log into that as we're talking, you've been around a bit.
First year, the main problem or the thing that gave us the most grief was the American visa, 6 months, 180-day visa. So we vowed in the second year not to have anything whatsoever to do with visas. So Europe was the target for year 2. And we wanted to go down, well, basically the internet search was, where is the cheapest place in Europe? And the answer to that question is Portugal, which is absolutely stunning. So we went down approximately 1st of January to find the very southwest point of Europe. And so second year was very southwest point of Europe. And it was going to be to the Arctic Circle until we met somebody with better counsel, wise counsel, that said we would be completely fed up at trying to go through all the way through Finland to the Arctic Circle. So we actually pulled south and went more around the Baltic. So second year was Europe, to Portugal, to Sweden, Finland, around the Baltic, to back to Germany. And then we thought third year to do Asia. And Asia is a lot of visa work and a lot of preparation. So we got a 3-entry visa for Thailand, and then we looked up on the internet where's the best place to fly into. We wanted English language ideally, so Malaysia was a good thing, and they also had a 90-day visa on arrival. So that was our flying point into Kuala Lumpur. And then we went Malaysia, Thailand, Laos, China, and then, to be honest, China. We had a 2-month visa for China, which is a really as much as you can possibly get coming from the south. And actually, the visa's not that difficult to get if you prepare. A lot of the internet says don't mention the word bike, and then other 50% of the internet says make sure you mention the bike. We just use the word overland, which seemed to be the best thing to put on the visa, and it made it logical that you would want to be there for two months. But the road building in China just became impossible to cope with, and we flew to Turkey. So we've been all the way from Turkey, working our way all the way back through Europe to Germany, and then curled back down with in behind us, heading south through Austria, Italy, and then spent Christmas on Malta. So that's been this year, and then flew pretty much from Malta, Heathrow, and then where we are now in the USA.
Wow. Your blog covers everything in great detail, and it's very open and honest. I think when we spoke last time, obviously it was a year into the trip, and a year is not long enough for it to completely change your lifestyle. And I think now, 3 years, that has become your entire life, I would think. How do you feel things have changed emotionally with the relationship you have to cycle and travelling through these different countries?
I think year one, we come from endurance cycling background, do a lot of racing, actually. And in the first year, we were still attacking the hills. We kind of noticed recently the hills that we would have cycled up in year one, we now walk up. We hope we haven't got much less fit, but we're now very much more conservative in what we attempt. What we realize what you can do in a 3 week tour. The depths that you can go to emotionally and physically, you don't get anywhere near that on a long tour, because it will bite you. You plan, but you will have a heavy day when you think you had planned for a light day. So we're very much more conservative now, aren't we?
And also to add to that, I mean, you get tired over the years, as much as it's enjoyable to ride along, but you do get tired, and you also realize that you need far more recuperation time to get your energy back. So the rest days that you give yourself sometimes are there are more of these days than we would have had in the first year. So we're fairly conservative, actually, in our riding. We don't necessarily see more or feel more adventurous to go off into different unknown routes. But we are certainly slower than what we used to be.
So would you say then, by pacing yourself this way, has it made some of the adventures that you do more enjoyable, or have you just taken more time to absorb what's going on around you?
A bit of both. I mean, in your TGO challenge, you rush out of the gate. I mean, it's that times 100 on such a long trip, and we still get to the point where if it's 5 miles down a dead end track to see a waterfall, we will still ride past the end without going and seeing it, because there is so much of the world to. Every day's hard. Every day's a challenge. We just try and reduce the tiredness at the end of the day and try and enjoy it more. It's been good fun. We've eased up. We walk up hills. we got nothing to prove, I think.
In addition to that, specifically our Asia trip was actually fairly hard in terms of temperatures. We are more of the Nordic type that actually likes riding in colder weather, or cooler weather, I should say. Now, in Asia, we had temperatures constantly around 38 to 43. I mean, highest was in Turkey at 46 degrees. Now, as much as I like to get up early, but by that time it was still dark, so we don't really like riding in the dark. And at midday, around 2 o'clock, you're already trying to look for somewhere to stay, to have a shower. So the days weren't actually very long in terms of riding, but it was pretty brutal in terms of temperatures. It got better, obviously, the more northeast we went, but for 3/4 of a year, it was a constantly heat wave everywhere. And we didn't actually do more riding simply because we couldn't.
Are we talking about travel fatigue? You know, when you get to the point where you actually get so sort of weary or tired from the actual travelling that you can't be bothered about seeing another cathedral or museum or whatever?
There is an element of that. Not that I want to put anybody off going and looking. We certainly had temple fatigue through Asia. You do find yourself riding past something, but then you come across things that are not in the guidebooks that you're absolutely captivated by, and you wonder why nobody's ever been there. So you try and stay mentally fresh in amongst all the pointing at which food you want. And trying to do the navigating. I think it's hard work. We've done 20, probably since you last spoke to us, we've probably done 21,000 miles since then.
Wow.
So our kids looking tired, we're looking tired, but still want to go on. So much to see.
Yeah. I mean, how was cycling in Asia? Dealing with different languages. I mean, the culture is fairly easy to follow, I think. The sort of respect goes a long way. But certainly communicating and obviously being able to read signs and road signs and that type of thing, as you say, foods and the basic commodities one needs in life, or sort of first aid items and that sort of thing. How did you find interacting with the Asian community?
We dropped into Malaysia first. So Malaysia had Indian cooking, which we really found absolutely wonderful. Going into Thailand, I think the first thing we learned was the word for no chilies or no, not spicy. My pet is an absolute essential thing to say, because you got slightly sunburnt lips, and we were trying to find calories that didn't make us worry about how hot it was going to be. The road conditions in Malaysia were fantastic. The road conditions in Thailand were absolutely first class, with a great wide cycle lane at the side. Going into Laos, that was hard work. That was very, very hard work. Riding up along the Mekong, I think that came as a shock. That was our first very, very poor country, our first fully on communist country. Lovely, lovely, lovely people, but very, very hard conditions, very, very hot, and very little that we could find to eat.
Had you become well, soft is a cruel way of saying it, but had you become soft and used to the investment that the countries have made in their infrastructure? Because going to somewhere like Laos makes me think of that's proper travelling, that's getting back to real basics.
Laos was a shock. You look across the Mekong to the Thailand side, and things are green. Every available space is being used for little gardens. And then on the Laos side, basically far too many goats. Everything is brown. So many people pleased to see you. So almost crazily pleased to see you, which is quite tiring in itself. But the whole technology there is based on wood-burning stoves, charcoal burning. They're trying to work on a sort of brown culture, isn't it? A culture of no clear horizons. Very, very hard to deal with. Other people have travelled in Laos, and they've had a great time. We got sick twice in 10 days and scurried back to Thailand just to kind of lick our wounds.
I think when you said going soft, in a way there's possibly a truth in that, because every day you think, God, this is hard work for whatever reason, for finding the right food that doesn't sort of upset your stomach, and finding the right shelter, finding, dealing with the temperatures. So when you, on top of that, come into a country that is challenging, then you are almost to square one. And you do think, I mean, we went not very far in Laos. We actually wanted to go to Luang Prabang, that's a UNESCO heritage site. We knew that would go over some desperate mountain passes. And when you're in Vientiane, and on the other side is Thailand, and Thailand is so much easier to cycle, I said to Warren, I would like to go back to Thailand and cycle there. Now, it's not by any means easy, because you still have the same problems of finding food, finding shelter, dealing with the heat. But for some reason, I had more ease of mind when I was in Thailand. So for anybody that wants to have a challenge and is happy to have a challenge after the third year, good on them, and hats off. But I was tired, and that's why I went across to Thailand.
Yeah, Bob, we knew we had China coming up, and wanted to make sure that when we got to the border of China, we weren't too fatigued. So that kind of had an effect on our thinking through Asia.
I suppose also, thinking about it, the experience you had in Laos would actually get you prepared mentally for what you could be facing when you went into China. I
think probably Laos needs to be cycled on its own in a circular route and go looking for the nice, get there fresh. And we had too much on our plate this year to get too destroyed by getting sick constantly. And we had the opportunity to take it a little easier, and we always knew that in heading into China we'd have to go through Laos. So we were trying once again to be conservative there, and it was the best idea.
And adding actually to China was surprisingly easy by comparison, because the food was very good, and finding accommodation was good. I mean, the roads and the surfaces there were challenging, but it wasn't as hard on the mind as Laos was. But saying that, obviously, after 1 month of China, we had enough of that, and we needed to get out.
I mean, tell me, let's just explore China for a bit, because it's a very mixed impression that it's giving the rest of the world at the moment from the through the media. On the one hand, you have the bright lights and the way that Hong Kong has obviously presented itself as being the glossy front of China, and also the capital cities. But then on the other hand, you have this vision, or one gets a vision, that China and the rural communities is still very, very basic. In fact, we had a Chinese student stay with us, and she was fascinating to talk to, because she emailed when she returned back to China, and she said she had become soft because she'd forgotten it's a 15-minute walk to the toilet at night time in the village that she came from.
Trying to cycle in China, you can't cycle on the main roads, and the main roads take the easy grade, but also the main roads will inevitably take you through very long tunnels. So we were forced onto the minor roads up into the mountains through the villages. So in some ways, you're back into old China, you're back into tea growing. Strangely, language wasn't too much of an issue. China is rapidly trying to learn English, and most villages we got into, somebody who would probably never going to see another first language English speaker would come up to us and be able to speak English. which was astonishing. They are so much wanting to join the world.
But in terms of lifestyle, there's a stark contrast between the developing towns and the countryside. When you go through the countryside, there are places where you've got the pigs and the chicken and the some cows running in front of it, and you can't make out what are the living quarters and what are the stables. And when you then come from that environment, go into the big towns, and what was like a 3 million town last year is a 7 million town this year, with construction going on left, right, and center. It is a pretty bizarre experience. It is also really weird experience when you go through these very rural areas and have expensive elite European cars like Mercedes and Audis passing you by, and it is an extraordinary country of contrasts, worthwhile seeing.
What about the technology? When you're going through these countries and describing them as you are, I remember you saying in our previous interviews about how important it was to have the technology to plan ahead and so on. Are they investing in the technology as well, the internet and the infrastructure there, even though on the surface of it that they're sort of a poor village surroundings, but presumably they've got the connectivity and social media?
Anywhere in China, I mean, we did play a bit of a game. Where could we turn on our phone? How remote could we be and still get a full 3G signal? And we never found somewhere where we couldn't get a 3G signal.
Good grief.
It is extraordinary. Communicating out of China also basically working on your blogging platform is really straightforward using
VPN.
Yeah, VPN system. And almost everybody there knew that if they want to get out to China, most of the Chinese we spoke to had a VPN system on their computer. They're completely switched on to the world and very, very technologically advanced. Even remote is not a problem. What we did find was that a lot of people, we had Chinese maps, and you'd try and work out where you were or plan ahead, and very few people could orientate a map, even though it was a Chinese map with Chinese characters.
Really?
Yeah.
Even taxi drivers had no idea how to orientate a map.
And what about, I mean, it's a sweeping sort of area to cover, but what about the youth? Because my contacts in Hong Kong and China are telling me that they're having specific problems at the moment getting young people to do manual work. It's a common problem around the world, obviously, as youngsters get more involved in technology. That's what they want to work on or in, computer related. So they're struggling to get the youngsters into the factories and so on. Was there anything that you witnessed in that area that would support that the young people were not doing manual work so much?
No, not really. The whole Asia is a culture of work. I mean, all the way through China, you point to where the person worked, be it a salesperson, whatever, and then the bed would only be 2 meters away. And if you wanted to do something at 4 a.m, there was somebody there to help you. I mean, they work so unbelievably hard. I could quite understand why somebody wanted to be a computer programmer rather than a farmer in that harsh climate.
Mm.
You're listening to theoutdoorstation.co.uk.
Award-winning producers of podcasts to inform, inspire, entertain, and encourage people to enjoy a healthy outdoors lifestyle.
If you have any feedback, questions or suggestions, why not drop us a line directly to our email address, info@theoutdoorstation.co.uk.
So, following your China experience, and I understand that basically the infrastructure, the roads, that when they were doing the roadworks, was obviously causing you a lot of grief from a mechanical point of view. You then moved on to Turkey, which in itself is another culture shock, I'm sure, travelling from Asia, or that part of Asia rather.
Had we come from Manchester to Turkey, that would have been a culture shock. But coming from China into Istanbul, we almost cried day one when we saw we could get bread. We hadn't seen bread in 3 months or something. Absolutely wonderful. Turkey just was a dream for us.
For us, going back to Turkey was another wish also. We were in Turkey many, many years ago, not by bicycle, but just as, let's say, normal tourists. And we really enjoyed the culture in Turkey. And I'd been in Turkey when I was working. So going into Turkey and experience the culture there wasn't actually as strange to us as for some other people that have never been there. But what has been significant was that we went inland into Turkey and seeing the little villages there. So Istanbul is not really Turkey. What's driven in Istanbul is the link of Turkey to probably Europe, but the inland is a fascinating place, and we absolutely loved it. Seeing the culture there, seeing the cultural sites there, it felt like a big story from Thousands and One Night we were going through. So wonderful.
And you found the Turkish welcoming? They didn't give you a sort of any thought of concern, Esther? Because I know they can be quite sexist on that sort of things.
The people are extraordinarily welcoming anywhere you go. So we were riding on the road and people were stopping us at the crossroads to invite us to teas and to coffees or to whatever. And by the way, you never ever had to pay for your tea or coffee. They were just so happy to have you there. But as a woman who's doing the communication, it is a bit difficult because the guys can be a bit free with their hands, let's say, and accidentally touch parts of your body. But that actually didn't happen too often. And once we learned how to deal with that, I was absolutely fine. So Warren was between me and anybody else, and we had a really great time. And also in terms of feeling afraid, we were doing quite a bit of camping in Turkey, wild camping in that matter. And, you're trying to be somewhere in the field, hope that nobody had seen you because you're tired and want to go to bed or into your sleeping bag. And, inevitably you get somebody coming along and they're trying their best to comfort you. We had like an old shepherd coming past us. We didn't really understand any word, but we found a word, that meant farmer, that Warren used to be a sheep farmer, etc. And a few hours later, he came in back to the tent with 2 bags full of fantastic Turkish bread filled with herbs and cheese and some water, and just said, if anything is a problem, his house was there, and, we are most welcome. And something, you go back to sleep, or you can't sleep because you think, my God, these are really what we consider poor people, but they're so full of generosity that you just sit there and, you want to cry, because experiences like that are so hard to find in Western Europe.
Did you find with all the countries that you've been through and the people that have invited you in for coffee or meals or been generous to you, as you say, did you actually sort of take the opportunity to stop very often to do that, or did you sort of limit yourself to once a day or that type of thing?
No, we'd stop whenever possible. If somebody... the joy of going slow is that if we only do 30 miles... it's worth it if we've stopped and experienced somebody's hospitality or a story or a bit of local politics or culture. And most of our journey this year has been geopolitics catch-up time for us, coming through the Balkans and the Near East and the Far East. Time and again we were on Wikipedia trying to work out what is the history of this area, and what are the allegiances here, and what do people think about us? Being somebody with a British passport and somebody with a German passport, which at points this year was an issue, shall we say? And are we Christian was an issue this year. That's the first time on a journey that was significant.
Mm. And how do the conversations evolve?
Normally, well, the whole area that we've been through, say the former Yugoslavia, and things that happened 12 years ago or 15 years ago are sliced right next to things that happened 2,000 years ago. One of our things this year was Alexander the Great, and where he came from in Macedonia, and which particular village was his, and which part of Greece is actually physically Greece, and which part should be Macedonian, which we'd never really come across, and how strong that is still.
I mean, obviously, to start a conversation like that, I mean, when you ride into a town looking like an alien, but have a smile and the willingness to communicate with the people, they're just all over you. And you just a piece of paper and a pen, and you scribble down how many kilometers you have done and where you have been, the countries. So the questions are there. There's always the interest. You know, what have you experienced? Where are you going to? And then that inevitably leads to what is around your place, and then you can ask questions. You know, where they have been coming from. What's their family history?
Yeah, we always had in any area where we couldn't speak the language, we always had a crib sheet of one paragraph saying where we come from, what are we doing, what have we done, that we're married, what our ambitions are, very tightly put into what we hoped was Chinese, Thai, etc., and all the way through. So that was first thing. Always have a crib sheet that tells the local people in their language, assuming they can read, exactly what you're doing.
How many times a day would that invitation happen? 5 or 6 times a day.
Oh, really?
Turkey, yeah.
In Turkey. Well, in Asia, in Thailand, here we go. The further you get off the tourist route, the more often it happens. And that's all over the world. If you travel on coastal riding, coastal tourism is the same the world over, and people will tend to ignore you or try to charge you $4 for a coffee, where 10 kilometers inland, the coffee is half or a quarter of the price, and people seem to have time for tourism, well, for travelers, shall we say.
Also, I mean, we have been talking here about Asia mainly. I'm just going back to some memories that we had in sort of central Spain and Portugal. Now, whilst the people were there friendly as well, they were actually more hesitant to communicate with us. I think it was more like a language barrier there. So the people did just not come towards us as much as Asian people would do. So, but I think that's very much a cultural thing.
Well, I think the main cultural one that we found, we had the language skills in Germany, and West Germany was fairly unwilling to stop, and pretty much within 10 meters of crossing over what was into the former East, we were having conversations, and people had the time. Whether that was just circumstantial, it was wonderful. Esther cheered up and could speak and chat all day long there.
What I enjoy most of all about chatting with Warren and Esther is the fact that their journey has involved so much talking and interaction with those they met en route in all the different places. I went to a talk a couple of years back by Mark Beaumont, the then around the world cycle record holder, and came away thinking how sad and isolating his adventure had been. No interaction, no relationship building with the countries as he passed through them, just head down and pedal. And similar in my view to a lot of the celebrities and their so-called challenges, isolated in a small little safe bubble with their own little support team and really missing the point of the journey. Anyway, part 2 or part 4, however you look at it, follows shortly. And we look at wild camping rules around the world, the inevitable security and personal safety issues, technology, of course, and how it's changed travelling even in the most remote of places, and the personal changes in Warren and Esther as they face their last journey home. It's Easter weekend 2014 as I release this, and the next part will follow just before the Backpacking Lightweight Outdoor Show, which takes place in Malvern at our offices on the 26th of April. If you'd like to support us, we would love to see you there. Come and say hi, if nothing else. And just to give you an idea of where we are, we're only an hour or less away from Birmingham, Bristol, Brecon and Coventry, so we're just off the M5. So if you feel like a day out, come on and see us and enjoy some of the free tea and coffee, as well as the magnificent Malvern Hills right on our doorstep. The entire Backpacking Light and Outdoor Station family will be there to greet you with open arms. So until then, and next time, and part 2 of this particular interview, take care. Bye for now.
Thank you for listening to this podcast. To hear or see more from our extensive free library, please visit theoutdoorstation.co.uk.